Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, and today we're going to discuss Think Before You Sleep. This is the second official video of the Mrs. Midwest Pipeline series. The first was on Ali Yared, who Mrs. Midwest recommended for Christian content and aesthetic. And if you're interested in the other folks in the pipeline, I'll link the playlist in the cards. And before we get into it, no, I don't hate Mrs. Midwest. I'm not jealous. I don't care that she's a Christian or that she's a homemaker. I don't want to bring her down. I'm not telling people they need to stop watching her channel or that they're bad if they continue watching. My goal with this series is to shine some light on the not so wholesome creators she promotes. For those new to my channel or new to this series, you might be wondering why Mrs. Midwest has her own pipeline, or perhaps who she even is. Mrs. Midwest is a YouTuber and blogger who talks about faith and femininity. All well and good, but she does have an agenda, and it's not just to make women more feminine. As she says herself,
because my message can be kind of like intense for some people, like the things I believe, I like to pad it with skincare and like how I clean my house.
And when people say she's harmless, I'm just jealous, whatever, I wonder what they think she thinks is so intense about her beliefs that it needs to be padded with lighter content. And on that note, today we're going to be looking at Think Before You Sleep. Last March, Mrs. Midwest posted a blog about YouTube content she's binged. And there's a wide variety of content on here, ranging from fashion to beauty to baking to Black Pigeon Speaks, Brittany Sellner, and of course, Think Before You Sleep, which is our focus today. And I have to admit, I'm a bit curious as to why a YouTuber whose main focus is faith and femininity, as mentioned before, and whose audience is mostly young women and girls, is recommending a MGTOW channel whose audience is mostly, if not entirely, male. As I've said before, Mrs. Midwest will never say or do something that offends or makes you doubt her. But she will direct you to people designed to push you in the direction she wants you to go, and she'll make sure to include disclaimers that offer her some plausible deniability, such as this one on the blog post. Please watch at your own risk and understand that I don't necessarily agree with 100% of someone's beliefs just because I recommend, enjoy, or have watched their videos. Life doesn't work that way. Winky face emoji. And hey, that's true. Just because you enjoy one video doesn't mean you agree with everything a creator puts out. However, having watched the video in question, well, I now understand this seemingly random recommendation. But I didn't really pay it much mind. I was more shocked by the Brittany Sellner wreck until...
So this video was inspired by another content creator. He is called Think Before You Sleep.
And I just about fell off my chair. But here's the mandatory disclaimer.
It's a little bit controversial. It's a little bit, I don't agree with everything. It's a little bit out there, but I find his channel interesting because he often comments on modern dating, male and female dynamics. And in this one video, he was reacting to a dating experiment.
And if you're curious about the video she's talking about, I'll link to Green is Not Nick's commentary on it. Returning to Mrs. Midwest, I was wondering if anyone was going to point out that maybe sleep is an odd mention on a channel meant for young women, but instead I found these two comments on that video. You just totally dispelled all the myths your naysayers have said about you, that you were this desperate pick-me girl. Far from it. This is such sage advice, and you had too much class to really address their criticism. You are a woman rooting for other women, and that's all you've always been.
Yeah, I won't even click on those other videos that bash her because I've seen all her videos and she really is the best online example of someone that I want to be more like. She seems to care about truly empowering women, but not in the way that we were always taught by the media, and that freaks some people out and threatens their worldview.
No. If Mrs. Midwest truly cared about empowering women, she would not be directing her audience to think before you sleep, no matter how many disclaimers she applies to it. She knows her audience is young women and teen girls, and those are delicate ages where you're trying to find yourself and your worth and your purpose. And the last thing you need to be listening to is a woman bad channel, especially if it's recommended by someone you look up to. And you should ask yourself why she would put that channel forward for consumption. I did, and I was puzzling over it until I watched that Survivor episode she recommended. So, who is Think Before You Sleep? Well, they're American, and they began uploading in early 2019. They were, and are, a no-face channel. However, he does show his face on live streams and had his face reveal in January of this year. As for MGTOW, though the channel initially was a MGTOW channel, Sleep mentions in his The Problem with Manosphere Creators live stream that shortly after his Rachel Oates video in 2020, he turned away from MGTOW. This has gotten him some pushback. Apparently, they missed his announcement nearly 3 years ago. His greatest crime appears to be dating Brittany Venti, which apparently makes him a simp and her a whore. He takes it very coolly, I admit. He just asked what their proof is, but this is also part of the community he's helped create, where anything not disdain or disgust shown to women makes you a simp, and women only exist for sex. But it doesn't seem to have slowed his channel's growth. As of recording, he's at 673,000 subscribers. In addition to videos about modern dating dynamics, Sleep is also very involved in fat acceptance. He's against it, and he does occasional videos about other topics as well. And, you know, he apparently has a degree in exercise science and does yoga. That does not mean he gets to diagnose people online, and he should know that. Perhaps you remember the episode of My Partner Identifies as a Dog from the Truly channel in 2018. Well, Sleep decided to make a video about it, and here was one of his takeaways.
You have to ask, what is Tony trying to escape? We were never given an answer from the documentary, but usually in these cases, it's a toxic or abusive environment during childhood, or it could be something like the unfortunate death of a parent at a young age. Also, with reasonable accuracy, we can guess that she is dealing with depression because she specifically said that she wanted to be a dog because dogs are a representation of pure joy. She's trying to physically act out something that she's lacking. This is all just basic, well-known stuff in the psychological fields, and I'm not sure why we have to pretend this stuff is normal. I'm also not sure why we have a vapid group of people actively trying to censor anyone who tries to render help to people with these issues so that those people can live healthy lives and be happy.
So there you have it. This is all basic psych stuff, and Sleep just wants these people that he's never met and likely never will to get help so they can stop doing these weird things and be happy. And you know, do I understand this I identify as a dog thing? No, but no one is asking me to pretend to be a dog, and it's really none of my business how other people live their lives. It's definitely not my place to try and claim that strangers are miserable because I don't understand their life. But on that note, really, he just does this for the children.
Which is actually where my issue with this stuff lies, or with kink in general, because a ton of people are taking a bedroom fetish or salacious behavior and acting components of it out in public. If you watched my other video on this, then you saw the DDLG couple acting out that aspect of their relationship in a public park with kids in the background. You also saw the other dog girl, Danny, from that video doing her stuff in public view, and while she was probably shooting content for her OnlyFans account. Stuff like this is not appropriate in a public setting, especially in areas with children.
What have I got here? What have I got here?
Oh, give me that.
Even if it's not salacious behavior, if young people see adults barking at each other in public or other kink behavior, a percentage of them, who are likely not having the greatest childhoods, will adopt that behavior as a social contagion and then start engaging in escapism instead of working to solve their problems, all while at the same time making them socially undesirable to their peers, which will make their mental health issues worse because the only way to fully resolve mental health issues is through positive connections with other people. That's why I have a problem with media companies like Truly promoting these kinds of people and attempting to normalize this behavior. And certainly if you've watched my content before, then you'll know that there is literally no bar low enough for Truly's channel.
Is it glorifying, or is it presenting someone's story without telling the audience that people featured are bad or wrong? But you know, I really don't buy it when these people say they're just worried about the children. People, even children, are not so susceptible that they'll see someone doing something odd in public and promptly adopt it themselves, especially considering kids can be cruel. And for that matter, though he says these behaviors would be more likely to make someone socially undesirable, it looks like these people have supportive communities. But you know, I'm not a psychologist, though for that matter, neither is Sleep. But I'm not buying what any of these folks are selling. They're uncomfortable, therefore they tried to hide their discomfort behind think of the children. In his Manosphere livestream, he mentioned his Rachel Oates video, and though it's a few years old, I was curious, and it's not refuting what Rachel said so much as tearing her apart and interpreting her sentences into things she never said or meant, which is a great way to dishonestly win an argument if you're into that sort of thing. But while we're here, let's get some things straight.
Even with this first clip of her, the whole premise of her video is that MGTOW are violent women haters. So that means she's nonviolent, right? If that was true, then why is she pro-abortion? Abortion is a procedure where you take a vacuum and tear apart an unborn child limb from limb until it dies. Pro-choice or not, that's pretty violent.
So first, if abortion is violent, what is childbirth? Pregnancy and childbirth are also more dangerous than an abortion. Second, there is more than one way to perform an abortion. Over 90% are done in the first trimester, so most are done with a pill.
A lot of my channel is dedicated to the ability to identify women who have untreated childhood trauma so that we can avoid these women in our personal lives. It's not our job to save them. It's their job to get treatment. People who are untreated victims of child abuse will ruin your life. I bring this up because one of the easiest ways to identify a woman who has been abused and not gotten treatment is her voice. This is something that I picked up from listening to about a decade of a radio show called Loveline. When women are abused severely or had a traumatic event as children, their vocal development will stop at the age of the initial abuse. So if a girl gets molested at 7 years old, she will sound like a 7-year-old into adulthood. Now, I stress that this does not happen to every woman who has been abused, but when it does happen, it's almost a guarantee that some pretty bad abuse went on during childhood.
I was multitasking when listening to this video, and that promptly made me stop what I was doing and go to look this up because this notion that childhood affects a woman's voice is news to me. Unsurprisingly, I found a 2002 article about Dr. Drew's Loveline and no studies. However, Sleep thinks it's real, and he cites Rachel, Christine Blasey Ford, and Monica Rial as proof. And I just want to say, no, you cannot save someone from their trauma. And no, you don't have to date someone you don't want to date. But you also do not try to find ways to use someone's trauma against them. I just want to note that Sleep talks about feminism a lot, and well, my first impulse is to always give someone the benefit of the doubt, but I'm struggling. The things he assigns to feminism are really out there, and I would like to know why it's assumed this man has a better grasp on what feminism is than people who are feminists. I would also like to know where he gets his information from, because some of the things he comes out with, well.
Obviously, the manosphere is very, very anti-feminism. One of the major tenets of feminism that has caused a lot of this destruction is lack of faithfulness in relationships. So things like saying cheating is great. Plenty of articles out there saying with feminists saying, go, yeah, cheat on your, do I have one up here?
Cheating is a major tenet of feminism? That doesn't make any sense. And if it's a major tenet, why haven't I ever heard of it? Shouldn't it be on some website or in some literature or something? I'm cheating on my partner in the name of feminism. He should say that out loud and realize how ridiculous that sounds. So far as I'm aware, because unlike this guy, I won't pretend to know everything, cheating isn't a major tenet of anything. No religion, no movement, nothing promotes cheating. And honestly, that makes sense because what would that accomplish outside of likely wrecking your partner's world? But you know, I always like proof of these claims, and he is here to provide.
This is Cosmopolitan anyway, so Cosmopolitan saying this. I've cheated on every boyfriend I've ever had and I don't regret it. Thank you, Cosmopolitan, women's magazine. So things like that. Feminism has said all kinds of shit like that.
Cosmopolitan isn't a feminist magazine. It's a woman's magazine. There is a difference. And it also doesn't claim to be a feminist magazine. But sure, an article written by Anonymous is a great source for the claim that cheating is a major tenet of feminism. In case anyone is wondering, Ms. Magazine is a feminist magazine, and there's not an encouragement of cheating anywhere to be found. There's also not much about men in general. Shockingly, it turns out that women have worries and concerns and fears, and their lives don't revolve around men and what men think of them. It's almost like women are people. And I just want to add that it's thanks to people like Sleep that we get questions like, do women have inner lives like men do? Yes. Yes, we do. And then if you refuse to play that stupid game and argue for your personhood, they throw up their hands and say, well, looks like I was right.
If you only show people doing bad things, you're no better than feminists. So that's all feminist is. All they did was show men being abusing children, cheating on their partners and leaving or hitting them. They never ever show men doing good things, and that's why feminists have such a radical opinion of men that's not true.
So to be clear, feminists have a radical view of men that's not true, and that view is how men as a whole, are dangerous, abusive, toxic, you get the idea. However, feminists also encourage women in relationships to cheat. If feminists think men in general are dangerous, would encouraging women to cheat not be incredibly dangerous and stupid? Can someone make this make sense? But anyway, this is not the first time I've heard feminism and red pill called two sides of the same coin, and no. Red pill is about how women are useless but scheming NPCs who deserve to be over. Feminism is about lifting women up to the same level as men. That means ensuring women are heard, ensuring women are taken seriously, ensuring women are understood to be human. Women are not angels, they are also not devils. And that does not mean men don't have problems. However, shitting on women isn't going to help men. Anyway, let's have a look at his Survivor episode that Mrs. Midwest found interesting enough to binge and worthwhile enough to recommend. My first question, why is someone in 2022 recommending a video that was published in 2020 about a season of a TV show that aired in 2015.
A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. I think evidence begs to differ on that one. Sure, it's one thing to say that in a nice air-conditioned office, but I don't think I have ever heard a feminist point out the inconvenient truth that men almost exclusively work all of the dangerous and important jobs that keep society running.
Has he asked himself why men dominate those fields? Or does he just assume it's because women are incapable?
I can survive without a New York Times journalist, but I don't think I can survive without indoor plumbing, electricity, or a roof.
Is he aware that men also work in air-conditioned offices and also work as journalists? Does he demean and disregard men who aren't doing what he considers important work? Or does he assume that even if they currently aren't doing that work, if push came to shove, they could, and therefore it's only women that should be looked down upon? Also, what about women who are doing that work? Why do they not count? And if you're scoffing and thinking to yourself, women never do hard jobs, that's for men, I'll leave some links just for you below.
I find it curious, though, that feminists love to proclaim how independent they are from men on their computers and cell phones that were invented by men.
Ada Lovelace, Katherine Johnson, Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, Margaret Hamilton, Frances E. Allen, Dame Stephanie, Steve Shirley, Hedy Lamarr, and Radia Perlman, and many more would like a word. Sorry, buddy. Ignoring women doesn't make them go away or make their contributions nothing. What a great example for young women, though, teaching them that women have contributed nothing to the world and just brag about being independent when in reality, they're anything but.
Which brings up the question of equality. That was a topic of discussion in the Jubilee MRA video I covered recently, and I avoided it so I could talk about it in this video. Are men and women equal? The answer to that is no. The reason for that is that men and women are two different things that you can't compare one-to-one on their actual value to society. Equal is the wrong word. The correct word is necessary. Food and water are not equal, but they are both necessary. Each serves its own role. The same is true for men and women. There are things that women are naturally better at, and there are things that men are naturally better at.
Behold, I have found why Mrs. Midwest likes and recommends this video. I have also found some of those things she lightly considers out there, but that's for later on. I have no doubt Sleep considers himself an intelligent man, so I don't understand why he's pretending not to understand what feminists mean when they talk about equality. Everyone has different strengths and different weaknesses, and there is no good reason to pigeonhole someone into a role they may not like or be suited for based on their sex. What we are saying is that you should not base your treatment of someone according to their sex. You should start to treat everyone with a basic courtesy.
When it comes to raising children, men are far better at setting boundaries. Women are better at emotional development. Taught to kids without fathers, they are often all over the place and can't contain their behaviors. Taught to kids without mothers, they're often emotionally dead.
I'm going to need a citation for this, especially considering if we follow what he says here that men provide this and women provide that, we would see similar effects in same-sex parent homes, but we don't.
What we have seen with feminism, though, is an overpromotion of women followed by a complete lack of respect for what men contribute.
I am very grateful to everyone that keeps our society running. And you know what's interesting? I've never seen anyone in those professions demand respect for their jobs. It's people who don't do them that demand respect on their behalf. But no, you do not get the respect of an electrician simply because you share sex with the majority of them. And you don't get kudos for inventing something you did not invent.
I think this show is the perfect example of why feminists cannot survive in their fantasy world without men.
Is he trying to say that in a feminist utopia, there would be no men? Because that is not true. A lot of us like men, a lot of us are attracted to them. We just want to be treated like humans.
For those of you who haven't heard, this is the wonderful experiment in gender equality called The Island with survival expert Bear Grylls. 14 average men versus 14 average women on 2 different Pacific islands for 6 weeks.
Again, I'm pretty sure Sleep thinks of himself as an intelligent man, so really? You're going to say 28 average people proves your point that men are wilderness ready, while women would just flail helplessly until a man saved them? He has to know that's not a good sample size, and that reality TV is not the way to learn anything. These people know they're in no danger. You can't let someone die for the sake of television. There is no comparison between this and a real life or death situation.
Obviously, both teams had it rough, but my experience watching the show was, yeah, men had it difficult, but they worked hard and pulled through. The women, however, was just a never-ending story of misery with one bad thing happening after another. They were clearly not able to survive without men, much to the anger of feminists who complained about this season.
In a fun twist, the Telegraph article Sleep is displaying was written by a man. And to be honest, I don't really care. I did watch the video in full, and it seems to me like the men thought it a chance to test their survival skills, and the women treat it like a vacation.
If you watch the show, what you'll find with the women is a lot of feminist notions of independence.
Independence isn't a feminism thing. It's an American thing. However, he does go on to point out that the independence we experience in the West is a luxury, and throughout history, people have had to rely on each other to survive. And I agree, but for some reason, he has to take this to...
I do think it's funny when a feminist screams about how she is strong and independent while her ex-husband is paying her child support and alimony, or she's on welfare.
Where are all these women screaming about their independence? And does he know why alimony and child support exists? Let's just break this down as quickly as possible. Child support is not for the parent, it's for the child, and I'm a bit curious as to why someone would think that's a bad thing. Alimony is not something women just get following a divorce. You have to show a real need for it, such as being a stay-at-home spouse or parent. And even then, alimony isn't indefinite. Laws vary between states and every situation is different, but I've provided links below for anyone who would like more information. This reminds me of something Mrs. Midwest said, though, about alimony. What was it?
A lot of people have expressed fear at becoming a homemaker in the event that your husband would either pass away or leave you, cheat on you, divorce you, etc. You would still be given half the income according to the courts. That's just how it works.
I'm no expert in marriage law, but I think she's referring to community property. And I hope since publishing this video, she's researched and found that Michigan is not a community property state. In fact, only 9 American states are. Anyway, it's interesting how men like Sleep are very upset and derogatory about independent women, whilst also being against alimony and child support. Between a woman with full-time employment, regardless of whether or not Sleep thinks the work is important, and a stay-at-home mother, who do you think would be more likely to receive alimony in the event of a divorce?
I did, however, find it funny that both groups went right to gender stereotypes. The men were primarily focused on hunting for food, while the women were primarily focused on gathering. At the end of the 6 weeks, each team showed off their camps to Bear Grylls. The men's camp was very utilitarian, while the women's camp was very decorated and made over. One more thing, the women slept communally, while the men slept individually. So this show turned out to be a real win for feminism on breaking gender stereotypes.
I'm sorry to be the one who tells him this, but in prehistoric times, there were women hunters as well. And if he thinks gendered socialization is a thing of the past, I would like to know how he arrived at that conclusion, because we're still pointlessly gendering things for babies. Making an observation or noting improvements that could be made does not mean something has been done and finished. Feminism is not done. The sexual revolution is still ongoing. Racism still exists. Humanity is far from perfect.
Another win for feminism is that Ruth England called season 1 of the show sexist because only men were allowed on that season. She said it portrayed the notion that women needed to be helped to survive.
I don't know why he's showing that article, because that quote isn't in it. The quote is from the NZ Herald, not the Daily Mail, and why don't we have a look at the article in full? But the UK-funded series, which will air on Channel 4 and aims to discover whether modern men have lost the ability to be practical, has been met with disapproval from the TV presenters' female counterparts, who say it's ludicrous that the island will be populated by men only. Survival expert and bushcraft instructor Lisa Fenton described the decision as inherently sexist, saying it was absurd to think that women weren't as capable as men when it came to survival skills. It's fantastical and ridiculous. Women are every bit as cut out for this stuff as men, she said. It is sexism and it's deeply rooted. Fenton, who undertook a 4-year apprenticeship with Ray Mears in the 1990s before founding a wilderness survival school with her partner in 2001, admitted that the hobby is male-dominated in the West. However, she said many of the survival methods used today were originally picked up by the military from both men and women among indigenous peoples in regions such as Australia, America, and Africa. Looking at indigenous society, female roles are every bit as important, she said. It's not just men who make the fires and go hunting, but now survival has become a bit of a cult of masculinity. Seasoned explorer Sarah Outen, who recently rode solo across the North Pacific Ocean and is about to kayak from the Aleutian Islands in the North Pacific to mainland Alaska, says the new show will promote the view that women don't go on big adventures. She labeled Grillis' own approach to survival as sensationalist. It's a pity that Channel 4 has decided to have a male-only show, as if somehow suggesting that women couldn't cut it. Or, more probably, that women wouldn't make good TV, she said. But there is such a male-oriented bias with adventure TV programs already that it doesn't surprise me to see this. Ruth England, who presents the Discovery Channel series Man, Woman, Wild with her husband, said the show perpetuates the myth that women need to be taken care of, labeling Channel 4's decision as laughable. The basic tenets of survival are the same, regardless of your genitals, and women cope very well, she said. I'm disappointed in Channel 4's decision, but not wholly surprised. The sheer amount of different types of terrain that I've survived in means that I have more primitive survival experience than most soldiers, yet I still get internet trolls telling me to get back in the kitchen. Who wants to guess why he chose not to include this article, though he liked a quote in it? If shit hit the fan, does he really think that those who didn't die, the men would be rebuilding society and women would just be waiting for a man to come take care of them? And now, to end this portion, some advice from Sleep about winning friends and influencing people.
If you want to have friends, if you want to have people like you, if you want to have people respect you, the primary way you earn that is by being productive and providing value to other people. If you don't provide value to anyone, people aren't going to like you. Well, maybe that's inaccurate. The only people who will like you are people who also don't provide any particular amount of value, so you'll have friends who are worthless if you have friends at all. If you want to change that, you need to actually produce something. You need to be useful.
What useful advice? Tell someone they need to be useful if they want to be liked and respected and have friends. So helpful. In my opinion, you shouldn't befriend someone on the basis of what they can do for you, but that's just me and my approach to friendship. And that is a young lady's introduction to the red pill. Women have some purpose, like child raising, and they should stay in their lane while the men get on with important things like building and maintaining society. Of course, men are also the ones more likely to burn civilization to the ground, but so long as they can rebuild it, it's fine, right? And it's probably a man raised by a single mother anyway, so really, it's women's fault. I do not like these types of conversations. I don't find them productive, and it just ends up going in circles. But I'm not going to just sit back and let someone claim that women have no purpose in this world besides procreation and that that's all we're good for. And I kind of wonder about people who cling to that idea. What do you get out of believing that women need to be dependent on men? Why does it please you when you see a woman fail? Why do you overlook the simple fact that women have been oppressed throughout history and yet have still managed to accomplish things? Why do you turn a blind eye when women try to enter a male-dominated career and are harassed until they quit? Is it just because you need to feel superior to someone? I don't want to say these people hate women, but I don't get it. I've seen talk about how Sleep researches and is fair, and sure, in the Survivor video he said Lauren had grit, but his main takeaway was that yes, women do need men to save them, and feminism is ridiculous for suggesting otherwise. Not to mention his bad faith in that dating video mentioned earlier, his dishonesty regarding feminism, and his unfounded theories about things like child abuse changing one's voice. But oh, there's so much more.
You think it's great that BLM people are trying to promote racism against white people like it was done on them? You think that's going to create a better society? No, it's going to create the same society that was around 50 years ago or 60 years ago or before that. It's just you didn't have the standard. You just wanted to be the one in charge.
Right. So how is BLM inciting racism against white people, and what does this racism against white people look like? Or actually, perhaps we should look at Sleep's Twitter. And here we have a picture of 2 adults and 2 kids, all white, with the caption, "White people, the only race you can legally discriminate against." Well, that didn't tell us anything, but I'm sure he has sources for this beyond his own imagination. He just didn't see fit to link them.
I love this. It's very, very much, again, very much feminist behavior is this type of thing here. Well, I didn't want to do this. I just did it anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see this fella do this. You know, I don't want to come in here and just take a fucking huge shit on him.
Then don't.
This really confused me. I didn't want to, but I did it anyway. Is feminist behavior? What on earth?
Sometimes I would just put your vids on to sleep. I guess that ties into the name, LOL, and MGTOW works. But at the top, people talk about women a lot, ironic. I don't have a problem with people talking about women or making that exclusively their content. You just have to be fair. I don't mind feminists bringing up issues about men as long as they're fair. The whole problem with feminism and woke stuff is that they're arguing in a very, like, they're not doing due diligence with research. They're posting a lot of things that are obviously fake, and it's like they're not admitting any fault to bad arguments. One of the reasons why I have respect for Lacey Green in that case is because she actually did that, and they were saying that Lacey Green just swapped sides in that stream. She didn't swap sides. She's still very much on the left. The only thing Lacey Green did was say, hey, maybe we should be a little bit more friendly to each other. The only person on her side of the argument that was for that kind of treatment, and then the woke radicals just threw her under the bus. However you pronounce that $5 super chat. I used to consider myself MGTOW. I stopped when I noticed a lot of bad faith grifting and misrepresentations became the main flavor of MGTOW content. Yeah, I don't think MGTOW was originally like that. I think there was a lot higher standards of research. Certainly videos from like Coltane and stuff like that had pretty high standards of research. A lot of it's becoming poor interpretations or again, only showing women doing bad things. So it's like, oh, you have a, like, what would you desire women to be? Oh, we're just not going to tell you. We're just going to say women all bad. They can never do anything good. Well, that's exactly what feminism does. So congratulations on doing the same thing.
Lacey Green was before my time, but if he has no problem with feminists or feminism, why does he insult it and misrepresent it whenever he gets a chance? He talks about doing research and due diligence. Why doesn't he? It's entirely likely he just doesn't care, and that's his prerogative, but in that case, just don't talk about it. And to hear these folks talk, there's hordes of feminists bad-mouthing men and insulting them and just overall hating men for absolutely no reason. But I've been around a bit, in the world and online, and I've never found these man-hating enclaves. And also, is he saying feminism says men are all bad, but gives no indication of what men should change? Is he aware that literature has been written about this? Also, it's not up to women to make men change. The men have to want to. And it wouldn't hurt men to feel that desire to change themselves and seek out ways and means of doing so instead of expecting women to do it for them. But to be fair, MGTOW does tell us what it wants women to be. It just says it's not realistic and you're better off single because all women are conniving, scheming gold diggers. Alright, so let's get into some of his takes on modern dating. The next video is about 2 videos from the Truly channel, which he apparently loves to hate watch. One about Danny the human puppy and Max the little.
I mean, if Danny, a person who has actual anxiety issues, can ignore negative comments, then I don't see why people like Taylor Lorenz have to go cry in a corner for a week because someone said they didn't like an article she wrote.
I don't really see how this has anything to do with anything.
The bottom line, though, is that this is not just some quirky alternative lifestyle. It's people who have been victims to likely some pretty bad stuff, and they're acting out these characters as a way of not dealing with their issues.
He doesn't know these people, though. He's assuming they're doing things he has no interest in because of some trauma, but we don't know that. And just because you see something and think, oof, not for me, doesn't mean that something horrible had to happen for the person doing it to do it.
And what the promotion of these kinds of behaviors of denial from many different movements, like, say, the fat acceptance movement, has done is it's pretty significantly reduced the number of partners who are desirable.
Acknowledging something, explaining something, showcasing something does not mean it's being promoted. And does he hate the fat acceptance movement or what?
Again, just to make this clear, Truly is actively promoting this stuff along with many other unhealthy relationships.
Can this puppy-loving pair convince the world that what might seem weird to others is perfect for them?
Did he even listen to that? It's not, can this pair convince everyone that human puppy life is for them too? It said, can they convince everyone that this is perfect for Danny and her partner? There is no plot to get everyone interested in being a human puppy.
So what will happen is that people watching this stuff who are socially on the edge and don't know that these behaviors stem from psychological trauma and mental health issues is that they will lean into their weird behaviors and call themselves quirky instead of fixing their problems.
What?
Remember that Max got the idea for her DDLG relationship and the idea to behave like a 5-year-old from watching YouTube videos. So then they go through life saying, why don't I have any friends? Why can't I get a job? Why do things not go my way in life? This is why.
But no one in this video said anything like that. And there are a lot of different people interested in these alternative lifestyles. I guess he's never heard of FetLife? If you want to be vanilla, there's no shame in that. I'm vanilla too. But why the need to act as though these people are attacking the foundations of society and making everyone's lives worse when all they're doing is living their life the way they want?
People are constantly being pushed into being less desirable by big media companies and activists. Do you want to know why there are less and less good relationship partners out there? How about we look at the overweight and obesity statistics, which describes around 70% of America. Both men and women don't want overweight partners. Oh wait, I can't say that because it's been deemed hate speech.
Except you did say that, and it's been 7 months, and this video is still up. So apparently, yes, you can say that. So dramatic.
Then add on the fact that tons of people can't get good jobs because they were lied to about the efficacy of college, which in reality just ended up wasting 4 to 6 important years of their lives. Being completely broke in your mid-20s and in tons of debt is not sexy.
I'm sorry, did he just say that college makes it harder to get a good job? Yes, college is insanely expensive these days, but you do still make more money with a college degree than without, and you're also more likely to be employed.
Then you have the massive promotion of sexual promiscuity by mainstream media, feminism, and the red pill, which is another behavior that both men and women find undesirable.
Feminism doesn't tell people what to do with their lives. It also doesn't tell women they're giving their valuables away if they have sex, and if that counts as promoting promiscuity, so be it. As for mainstream media, I would say it promotes the notion that women must be both sexy and chaste. But Red Pill definitely promotes men, just men, being promiscuous.
Where have all the good men gone? Where have all the good women gone? This is where they went. They got convinced to take on pathological behaviors instead of self-improving. We've had decades of mainstream movements promoting behaviors that people find unattractive, and it's preventing us from getting along.
Citation needed.
Honestly, maybe that's the point. Because I've noticed that people who have no friends or good people around them are quite susceptible to tribalism. All it takes to screw people over for many years is a company like Truly saying, "Lean into your weirdness, you're just quirky." No, fix your mental health problems. Go to the gym, eat healthy, take care of your appearance, learn how to detect social cues, learn how to maintain good social boundaries, start caring about people's needs and start helping them. When you get all this stuff right, people will magically start to like you. Like I said, this is bad on both ends of the spectrum. You have feminism saying, "How dare you like a woman because she is beautiful and feminine? That's sexist."
No. The issue arises when that's all a woman is valued for, and you don't even have to be a feminist to want to be valued for more than your looks and how well you perform your gender.
Then from the red pill side, you see guys saying, "Women are so shallow, they never talked to me until I got muscles and started making more money. How dare they like things that are attractive?" No, do what works. If you improved yourself and people responded well to that, then great. Stop getting resentful because people want to be around you. That's a great way to end up alone and miserable.
They weren't resentful because people wanted to be around them, though. They were upset, and this is Sleep's own hypothetical, that people just wanted to be around them because they were muscled and had money. And it's completely valid to want to be valued for more than your appearance and income. Do these people hear themselves talk? They seem to think anyone being around, anyone at all, no matter how well you do or don't get along, is preferable to being alone. Have they never been in a situation where they were stuck with someone they didn't like for an extended period of time? And there we have it. That was how progressive ideology is making people undesirable. I still don't get how, though. I would rather be myself, quirks and all, than be in a relationship where I had to fake who I was to make the other person happy and or comfortable. But that's just me, and I guess that is the main concern with Truly. It might convince people that conformity actually isn't all that great, and they should be as quirky as they like. Good heavens, the whore.
I have one question for you.
What's up?
Are you celiac?
No, I'm not.
Because all I got is cake.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong because he did end up choosing them. But I figure you have a guy here who is very in shape. Therefore, the women in line that he is being matched with should also be in shape. I don't like it when people on these shows aren't looks matched. I think it's fat acceptance propaganda, and it's subtly giving people an excuse to not take care of their health. That's what this conversation feels like. Patrick tells a joke or asks a fun question, and Davina just turns it into nothing. Obviously, what Patrick was trying to do is turn the conversation a tiny bit sexual, which is perfectly normal. I mean, we know what goes on in relationships. But she turns that into, "Oh, so you're some sort of weird creep who has a fetish for piercings." No, he was trying to get you comfortable talking about sex because if you wait too long to bring it up, that idea becomes super awkward later in the relationship.
I think that you can live that life with $300,000. Probably not $100,000, but $300,000 probably.
Oh, great. So you'll chase Chad until you're 30, and then when you're all used up and have wasted a number of your good childbearing years, you'll settle for a regular guy. Isn't that what everyone wants to be? The person who was settled for? By the way, starting to look for an average guy at 30 means it could be as long as 35 to 40 before she actually is in a stable relationship and in a place to have kids. By then, we have to deal with issues of infertility, all for a small chance to be one of the lucky few who actually bags a rich one. Do you see why this is a problem and why it's a problem for a large group of people like, say, 20% of women burning their fertility to get a 1% guy? No matter who wins, 19% still lose, and that is catastrophic for society at large when it comes to stable homes. Women think that doing housework and knowing how to cook is disgraceful.
You know what's disgraceful? Reaching adulthood without being able to take care of yourself. And that includes cooking and cleaning, no matter your sex. But please do point me toward these women who say cooking and cleaning is disgraceful, because I would like to know how they would solve the issues of not wanting to live in filth and needing to eat. Most people don't have a ton of money they can spend on house cleaners and takeout.
Women say it's offensive for a man to want someone he is physically attracted to, even though women will not date men they aren't physically attracted to.
What nonsense is this? Everyone knows that physical attraction is typically the initial spark of interest that starts a relationship. The issue arises when a woman is valued only for her looks. To sustain a relationship, there needs to be more than physical attraction.
Women have stopped acting feminine and started acting like men.
What is acting like a man, and why is it bad if women do it? Sleep is a man. He likes himself, right? He has male friends that he likes, right? Why does he only have a problem with acting like a man if the person in question is a woman?
Oh, and one last thing. Now that we've used feminism to remove all the things about women that men like, let's use feminism to convince women to not have kids, which currently is the only reason for men to get married.
I guess you could say that feminism leads to women having better economic outcomes, which tends to lead to women having fewer kids, but really the only reason for men to marry women was to have kids? Not because he enjoyed her company? No, I guess that idea isn't fathomable. One question though, does Sleep really think most women would be happy to marry a man if the only reason he was marrying her was for kids? That sounds like a miserable marriage. What happens once the kids are grown and gone and you're left with just each other?
At this point, Vox actually does something good. The next scene talks about the fertility window. Vox takes the time to point out that women don't have forever to have kids, which is quite impressive considering how much feminists typically lie about the fertility window.
Feminists typically lie about women's fertility window? Citation needed.
You don't have forever, ladies. After this, the fertility doctor says some unnecessary racist crap about fertility clinics. There is a disparity in racial access to fertility clinics and people of color are being oppressed. Well, duh, there's a disparity. Fertility treatment is expensive. If you look at household income charts, certain races make more money than others. Oddly enough, these income levels coincide almost perfectly with the rates of single motherhood in those communities. Asians have the lowest single motherhood rate and have the highest median household income. So, if you have access to more money, then you are going to have access to more resources. Why Vox decided to bring race into this, I have no idea, because this is about money and broken families, not race.
What can we do to reduce those disparities?
I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge it. We all have implicit biases that govern how we conduct ourselves and how we react to different people in different situations. The patients that are visiting fertility clinics tend to be white, female, college-educated, and wealthy because that's who can afford the treatment.
Yes, the way we solve this problem is to call everyone racist.
Racism in America would by and large be dead today if it were not for certain people and institutions keeping it on life support. Very sadly, one of those institutions is the American education system. Putting critical race theory into our classrooms is not combating racism, it's fanning the flames of what little embers are left.
So there you have it. Race has nothing to do with money, and if we just stopped talking about race, there would be no racism. And at the same time, talking about race makes you racist.
One more thing from our lovely fertility doctor.
And so one of the biggest things I personally would wish for is infertility evaluation and treatment to be covered by health insurance universally.
No. As a guy who gets no benefit from that, I'm not paying for some woman to get in vitro when she's 40 because she waited too long to have kids. If you don't want to have fertility problems, then you should have kids when you're young.
Of course, if you can't afford kids when you're young, well, here we have a bumper sticker on a truck that reads, "Can't feed 'em, don't breed 'em. The government is not your baby's daddy." It's a little funny that Sleep drones on about how the earnings gap is justified, but if women need assistance making both ends meet, well, you should have thought of that before you got pregnant. It's also a little funny that Sleep considers this Fox documentary a propaganda piece telling women not to have kids. Also, Sleep is against child support and, from the sounds of it, abortion. And he doesn't believe reproductive assistance should be publicly funded on the basis that women should have had kids when young. They will make something a woman's fault or they will die, probably from an anger aneurysm, trying.
Let me guess. They're going to find out that women are being oppressed. I'm not sure why they needed data for this when it's obvious that women take a financial hit when they have kids because they want to stay home. I mean, geez, Vox acts like women are being forced into this role that they are voluntarily choosing. Here's the reality. When you want to stay home instead of working, you are going to make less money.
So let me get this straight. This man acknowledges the earnings gap, but also blames feminists for making women not want kids. Has it occurred to him that some women opt out because they know they'll be expected to be the one taking time off work for childcare? He acts like it's nothing, and given his advice always boils down to look out for number one, I'm not surprised. But if it's just about taking time off work, then why don't companies offer equal amounts of leave to mothers and fathers? Are fathers not important? Should they not also have the time to spend with their children?
In the first year after having a child, the mother's earnings take a big hit. The father's, not so much. The female spouse's earnings don't actually recover until the child is around 9 years old.
What a shock. When women stay home, their careers suffer. You see, the real problem with this whole narrative is that Vox is out there acting like this whole thing is unfair. Just like with the wage gap. No, it's not unfair. You made certain choices. Those choices lead to certain outcomes. If you want to get paid as much as men, start working super long hours and pick up more dangerous, high-value jobs instead of picking office secretary, and you'll make the same amount.
That's something these sorts of men do often. They assume men have the high power, high paid jobs like doctor, tradesman, whatever else Sleep Here would find impressive, and that women are just out there being a waitress, an office secretary, whatever Sleep finds unimportant. But in reality, there are women in all sorts of jobs, and the issue arises in all of them. If you give birth, you need time to recover. Not to mention you need childcare. And that's not just the woman's problem, it's the parent's problem. And society still treats it as a woman's problem. That's why even now, women still spend the most time with their kids.
If you don't want to take a financial hit when you have kids, then find a nice house husband to take care of the kids while you work. Here's the problem though. Based on their preferences, women don't want stay-at-home dads. Women don't want men who make less money than they do, so stop complaining that everything is unfair. The choices are out there, but you aren't choosing them.
Except that would still be a financial hit to have one partner not working, especially if they planned on both working. And as he goes on to say, men typically have higher incomes. Though granted, he blames that on women's preference, and families typically opt to have the lower earner stay home because it makes the most financial sense, which is, again, why women tend to stay home. It makes sense because they're the ones who need to recover from giving birth, and their salaries are typically already lower, and childcare is an enormous cost. And that is why parental leave should be a thing. You can't penalize the mother for taking time off because the father is as well. And right from the word go, they both get to bond with their newborn instead of the mother being home with the baby all day and becoming the go-to parent by default. This man is exhausting.
Though her earnings do increase as the child gets older, the gap between the two genders is still there by the time that kid is officially an adult. One huge factor here is unequal childcare responsibilities. According to the American Time Use Survey, on an average day, women spent more than double the amount of time providing physical care to children than men.
This is another BS thing. For one, when they talk about the disparity in childcare, are they including the households with stay-at-home moms where her job is specifically to take care of the kids? Because if they're trying to say that arrangement is giving her an unfair amount of housework, then that would be very dishonest.
You know what's really dishonest? Asking that question and then not bothering to find out the answer. He knows his viewers just lap up whatever he says and won't bother to question. It's fine though. I'll answer for him. In 2016, fathers reported spending an average of 8 hours a week on childcare, about triple the time they provided in 1965. And fathers put in about 10 hours a week on household chores in 2016, up from 4 hours in 1965. By comparison, mothers spent an average of about 14 hours a week on childcare and 18 hours a week on housework in 2016. It's really interesting, though, how much these men hate the idea that women do more than men somewhere. Women spend more time on childcare and housework? Actually, 1 second.
Second, we have things like this. Why do I have to do more housework and childcare? I work a job too. Yeah, but you don't bring in nearly as much money as the guy does, so him doing an equal amount of housework and childcare is not fair. And we know women in average households aren't bringing in as much money as men because child support and alimony go to the person with less income, and those two things almost exclusively go to women. So if you bring home $40K a year and I bring home $100K a year, we are not equal in salary, therefore I shouldn't have to do an equal amount of housework. As I said, this is almost always the case because the vast majority of women will not date long-term or marry a guy who makes less money than she does. Women by large do not want to financially support men. These are women's preferences.
Just gonna jump in and add that 66% of households are dual income.
So stop complaining that your salary is not equal to your husband's when you specifically chose that person because he makes more money than you. And propaganda outlets like Vox, Stop telling women that the house situation is not fair. When they talk about house chores, they only count things like laundry and dishes. They very often completely ignore all of the male chores like mowing the lawn, cleaning the rain gutters, lifting heavy things, and fixing stuff when it breaks. So men are still doing housework, and they have to bring in the money.
So there we have it. Weekly and occasional chores count just as much as daily chores. And of course, it's all propaganda, not something that really exists. Women just laze around, eating hot chip and charging their phones without a care in the world. But Sleep is here to put a stop to it. The good times are up, ladies. He's alerting the men to our wicked ways, and the 10% of people receiving alimony, excepting the 3% of men, of course, they earned it, not like those women, are going to have to give up that easy life.
You were prioritizing being at home and changed jobs to do that.
That's true.
Why was it you who made that choice and not Dad?
Again, with the implication that it's unfair if women have to make any decisions.
This was when I began wondering if this channel was satire, because no one could possibly be this bad faith. But 4 years is a long time, and he has begun live streaming and attaching his face to what he says, so not that it really matters. His followers eat this up. But seriously, it's not about we have to make a decision. It's about questioning the reasoning behind decisions. I know Sleep thinks we should all just shut up and go back to the 1950s when we were happier and hopped up on Milltowns, but you know, it's good to question why you made the choices you made. It's good to not just blindly follow someone else's decisions. If Sleep and his followers don't want to do that, that's their business, but asking questions and thinking about things is good, actually.
That's one of the lies that feminists have sold to women. You can't have everything. That's not how real life works. In real life, working moms can't do it all. The kids of two working parents get thrown into daycare, and mom is never there for things like soccer practice because she's at work.
If you're wondering why he only mentions mothers, it's because kids apparently don't need their fathers until they're 5. And how is this helping men? He said in his Rachel Oates video that his channel was about helping men identify and avoid abused women, but who is this rant for? I doubt many women are watching his channel, and if they do, I imagine they're of the Mrs. Midwest mindset, so this is all just to reinforce his followers' beliefs that women bad? We started out talking about how propaganda tells women not to have kids, but now we're here talking about how you can't have it all, and companies shouldn't have to pay for you to have kids, and who is this for, and who is this helping? He just sounds like some angry man who hates women, and who made a video that got over 700,000 views.
If you don't want that kind of life, then don't work a career. Or do the obvious thing, which is be a lawyer after your kids grow up. As I've said many times before, women almost always pick careers that you can do until you're like 70. But for some reason, they are so insistent on burning up their childbearing years to get ahead.
Well, you see, we live in a capitalist economy, and money makes it so we don't die. And most of us want to do the responsible thing and make sure we're stable in income, a relationship, career, before bringing new humans into the world. How can this possibly be a problem?
It doesn't make any sense. The last thing that Vox does is make a plea for socialism by showing this chart and saying, it's so unfair that women have to pay for childcare.
So he is aware we live in a capitalist system. He prefers that system to anything else. And he wonders why people spend their younger years trying to get ahead, also known as making money. I thought he was supposed to be smart, research, due diligence. Has he met people? So I've been trying to puzzle out what Mrs. Midwest likes about this content. I can definitely see how it's out there, and I can definitely see why she would want to disclaim about not agreeing with everything, but what's the appeal? Is it because he rags on overweight people and is adamantly against body positivity? She did do a video about how she lost 8 pounds, and if memory serves, she says that men treated her differently because she seemed daintier to them. Is it because he puts women in their place? She did appreciate her now husband's approach by asking right away if she's a natural blonde, and again, if memory serves, she appreciates that he doesn't put up with her shenanigans, unlike the beta boyfriend she had before. Is it just because he's brash and offensive? She did mention liking Stefan Molyneux's content for those reasons, but really, I'm at a loss. He's not saying anything new, he's not saying anything profound, he just seems angry, and weirder still, he's angry about things that don't involve him. Which actually makes sense because he reads the weirdest things into people's words and assigns motivations based off his own assumptions, which really says more about him than the people in his videos. But hey, it's working for him. Look at that subscriber count go. I'm really at a loss for what young women and girls are supposed to take away from this channel though. That fat is bad, that talking about race is racism and racism was eradicated however long ago, that sexism was also eradicated however long ago, therefore feminism is no longer needed and women just like to complain. You should be grateful to be female because men are the ones that actually have the hard jobs in this world, that white straight men are the ones in control because they deserve it, that anything daring to question conventional wisdom is bad. Actually, typing that out tied it all together. Sleep pushes a traditional agenda. Abortion is bad, single mothers are bad, being thin and conventionally attractive is the right and only correct way to be, being married and having kids, obviously cis and straight relationships only, alternative lifestyles will only lead to mental issues and unhappiness later on, is the way to true fulfillment, there are men's chores and women's chores, and of course, whenever women point out something not right or unfair or call something into question, they're just complaining about their own choices that they refuse to take responsibility for. So, in short, breaking news, white, cis, straight man sees no reason to question the status quo. There's so much more I want to say, but this isn't a deep dive into sleep. It's a look at someone Mrs. Midwest recommends. And that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons, and if you would like to help support the channel, my Patreon is linked below along with my socials. Liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing are also great ways to show your support if you would like to. Have a great day, night, whenever you happen to be watching this, and fade to cats.